Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskrityam naram shiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyatam tato jayamudiraye. Nasta prayeshu apareshu nityam bhagavati sevaya bhagavati uttamasloke bhakti bhavati naisteki. Today we are reading from Canto 6, Chapter 6, The Progeny of the Daughters of Daksha, text 1 through 22. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, My dear king, hereafter, at the request of Lord Brahma, Prajapati Daksha, who is known as the Prajatasa, begot 60 daughters in the womb of his wife Asikini. All the daughters were very affectionate towards their father. Text 2. He gave 10 daughters in charity to Yamaraja, 13 to Kasyapa, verse 12, and then one more. 27 to the moon god, and 2 each to Angira, Krisasva, and Bhuta. The other 4 daughters were given to Kasyapa. Thus Kasyapa received 17 daughters in all. Text 3. Now please hear from me the names of these daughters and their descendants who filled all the 3 worlds. Text 4. The 10 daughters given to the Yamaraja were named Banu, Lamba, Kakud, Yami, Visva, Sadhya, Marudvati, Vasu, Mahutta, and Sankalpa. Now here are the names of their sons. Text 5. O king, a son named Devarasba was born from the womb of Banu, and from him came a son named Indrasena. From the womb of Lamba came a son named Pidyota, who generated all the clouds. Text 6. From the womb of Kakur came the son named Sankata, whose son was named Kikata. From Kikata came the demigods named Durga. From Yami came the son named Swarga, whose son was named Nandi. Text 7. The sons of Visva were the Visvadevas, who had no progeny. From the womb of Sadhya came the Sadhyas, who had a son named Artasiddhi. Text 8. The 2 sons who took birth from the womb of Marudvati were named Marudvatyam and Jayanta. Jayanta, who is an expansion of Lord Vasudeva, is known as Upendra. Text 9. The demigods named the Mahurkritakas took birth from the womb of Mahurta. These demigods deliver the results of actions to the living entities of their respective times. Text 10, 11. The son of Sankalpa was known as Sankalpa, and from him lust was born. The sons of Vasu were known as the 8 Vasus. Just hear their names from me: Drona, Prana, Dhruva, Arka, Agni, Dosa, Vastu, and Vibha-Vasu. From Abhimati, the wife of the Vasu, named Drona, were generated the sons named Harsha, Sokha, Baya, and so on. Text 12. Ojasvati, the wife of Prana, gave birth to 3 sons named Saha, Ayus, and Puroshava. The wife of Dhruva was known as Dharani, and from her womb various cities took birth. Text 13. From the womb of Vasana, the wife of Arka, came many sons, headed by Tarsa, Dara. The wife of the Vasu, named Agni, gave birth to many sons headed by Dravinaka. Text 14. From Kritika, another wife of Agni, came the son named Skanda, Kartika, whose sons were headed by Visakha. From the womb of Sarvari, the wife of the Vasu, named Dosa, came the son named Sisumara, who was an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 15. From Anjirase, the wife of the Vasu, named Vastu, was born the great architect Vishvakarma. Vishvakarma became the husband of Akriti, from whom the Manu named Chaksusa was born. The sons of Manu was known as the Visvadevas and the Sadyas. Text 16. Usa, the wife of Vibhavasu, gave birth to 3 sons. Vyusta, Rosisa, and Atapa. From Atapa came Panchayama, and the span of day, who awakens all living entities to material activities. Text 17-18. Sarupa, the wife of Bhuta, gave birth to the 10 million Rudras, of whom the 11 principal Rudras were Raivata, Aja, Bhava, Bhuma, Vama, Ugra, Vritsakapi, Ajakapat, Abir Brahna, Bahurupa, and Mahan. Their associates, the ghosts and goblins, who are very fearful, were born of the other wife of Bhuta. Text 19. The Prajapati Angira had 2 wives named Swadha and Sati. The wife named Swadha accepted all the Pitas as her sons, and Sati accepted the Atharvangirasa Veda as her son. Text 20. Krisasva had 2 wives named Arsis and Disana. In the wife named Arsis, he begot Dhumaketu, and in Disana he begot 4 sons named Vidasira, Devala, Vayuna, and Manu. Text 21-22. Kasyapa, who is also named Tarkrisya, had 4 wives, Vinata, Suparna, Kadru, Patangi, and Yamini. Patangi gave birth to many kinds of birds, and Yamini gave birth to locusts. Vinata, who is Suparna, gave birth to Garuda, the carrier of Lord Vishnu, and to Anuru or Aruna, the chariot driver of the sun god. Kadru gave birth to different varieties of serpents. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vidyamati. Hare Krishna. Chaitanya Prabhu, whenever you're ready, you can start, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Vidya Mahaswataji, for reading the translations today. Thanks, Prabhu, for this opportunity to share something from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 6. We'll start by offering my prayers. Om Kyantimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Shirunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनकारणम्. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you for joining this morning. So for the pleasure of all assembled Vaishnavas and for my own purification, we'll be discussing something from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 6. So just to give a brief overview, what's been discussed so far. We saw in the previous chapter how Daksha Prajapati, who was being in charge of bringing a lot of progeny into this world to fulfill the Lord's mission, he gave birth to 2 sets of sons. And despite having those numerous sons, when they went to do certain tapasya, how Narad Muni wonderfully guided them in the path of renunciation and enabled them to advance in this human birth, and enabled them to go back to Godhead. However, this hindered Daksha Prajapati's plan. And whenever our plans are hindered, oftentimes anger is born in our hearts. The same happened to Daksh Prajapati. He got bewildered because of his plans not being fulfilled. And with that, he in the last discussion on Friday, we heard from Gopi Janapriya Mataji how Daksh Prajapati, in his anger, goes on to say a lot of negative things about Sri Narad Muni, and in the end curses him that because of this behavior, he will never be attached to any home, but he'll keep wandering around the universe. And Narad Muni, being a wonderful saint, he never reacted to the curse, but he very humbly accepted the curse as a blessing, and that he'll get to preach more by visiting different places and sharing Krishna Katha with everybody. So when this particular pastime was over, in this particular chapter, this the first shloka, it is described that Prajapati Daksh was further requested by his father Lord Brahma, who is also known as Prachetasa, to beget 60 daughters in the womb of his wife Asikini. So Prabhupada, this is the only purport, unfortunately, that is there in this particular section today. So if devotees have time, I'd recommend them to read the purport through text one. But in this purport, Prabhupada touches a few points that I'd like to discuss a little bit. The first thing Prabhupada mentions that Prajapati Daksh actually had a sense of remorse. So being a wonderful soul, being a great soul, although he got bewildered in his moment of weakness because of anger, because of his desires not being fulfilled, and that in that anger, he lost his sense of righteousness, and he cursed Narad Muni, but he did realize that he actually in fact made a mistake, and he had some repentance in his heart. So when Lord Brahma requested him to create more progeny, he preferred to have them as daughters so that he would not be in the similar predicament of being instigated again if he were to lose his sons. So knowing his weakness, he goes on and begets 60 daughters in the womb of his wife Asikni. Now he knows that according to Vedic tradition, that women are usually not do not take up the path of renunciation. So he knew that Narad Muni would not encourage that, as that would not be consistency with the Vedic principles. So Prabhupada elaborates a little bit on that in the purport as well. So in several places, Prabhupada has commented, specifically in Bhagavad Gita, the purport to the shloka 16.7. Prabhupada describes that women should always be under protection. When they're little, they should be under the protection of their father. When they're in their middle age, they should be under the protection of their husband, and when they're older, they should be under the protection of their son. Now, oftentimes this statement is misconstrued by the modern media or the people with sort of a different mindset, and they look at this symbol of protection as being something very derogatory, of almost like women in slavery by keeping them under protection. But I had heard in one of the descriptions from Srila Prabhupada that actually protection does not mean demeaning or belittling somebody or containing somebody's independence. Protection is usually given to somebody who's very, very important. For example, like the heads of the state, when they visit a place, they're protected by several people, not because they are weak or meek, it is because they're very, very important. And that is why that's the role of women in our society, that women play a very important role, that they give birth to the next generation, and in doing that, they also serve as the first guru, the first teacher of the next generation. It's a very important role that women need to be protected. This is also one of the arguments that Arjuna gives to Lord Krishna in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, of why he would not want to fight a battle. Because he said, if so many people, men are destroyed, who is going to protect the women? And if the women are not protected, the next generation that would come would be of Varna Shankaras, unwanted progeny, and that would destroy the human civilization. The one of the other reasons that's given is that why women should not take up renunciation is because the if the husband is pious and the husband is doing a lot of spiritual activities, automatically half of the credit is acquired by the woman, by the wife, as explained in the Shastras. In another place, like Prabhupada had described, so when we talk about how important women are, he had actually compared women to diamonds or jewels. If you have something that's very important or a precious gem in your house, you normally don't have it lying around in the house anywhere. You really have it because it's so important and so precious. You keep it safe. And this principle is not just a principle that's just expounded in the Vedas itself, but even in modern times, we see that this principle is expounded in cultural organizations as well. For example, if you look at the United Nations has a subsidiary called UNICEF. It's United Nations Children's Emergency Fund. And one of the mission statements of UNICEF is to assure the health and protection of children as well as women, and also to ensure that women have a good nutritional status and maintain a good health. One may argue with United Nations is why is there no separate organization for men? You know, because the system is understood that if women are healthy, if women are protected, the next generation itself will be healthy and protected. This principle that sometimes people argue against, of why women are not allowed renunciation, why women need protection, it is not because of their weakness, but it is because of how important they are to society. Um, in another place I had read about how you can understand the how cultured a society is. There was an anthropologist called Margaret Mead, and she used to study civilizations. And she made a very interesting observation. She had said that when they came across different archaeological sites, and different sites that they were digging, how she would understand that the particular civilization that lived here several years ago was a very cultured civilization was if she found a human or an animal with a broken bone, a broken femur that was healed. So if somebody had a broken bone and that healed, the only way that could heal was if somebody else was protecting him and caring for him. Because the femur being one of the biggest bones in the leg, if it's broken and you can't move, then you can't really defend yourself or fend for yourself. So only way you can recover is if somebody else takes care of you. So whenever she noticed in her archaeological dig sites that she found this particular phenomenon of bones that were broken and healed, especially the femur bone, she concluded that must have been a very culture that was very rich and caring. So similarly, that is also a representative of our Vedic culture, where women are afforded protection for the same reason. So in that particular, that was the argument why women should not be encouraged to take renunciation. And with this, we go on to the next shlokas. So in the rest of the sections today, we've seen that basically Sukadeva Goswami gives a description of all the 60 daughters of Prajapati Daksha who were married to different personalities. So just to summarize it, instead of going through each shloka, what I'd like to do is I'd like to refer to one of the parts from Subodhini, Bhagavatam Subodhini from Gaurang Darshan Prabhu, just to make it more organized. So just give me 1 second till I bring it up. You can see me. So we described in this way that Daksh Prajapati, so he married a Sikni. Also, we saw she's also called Panchajani, and in that process, they beget 60 daughters. The 10 daughters who were married to Yamraj, Dharamraj, 17 daughters were married to Kashyapa, 27 were married to the moon god, about which we'll hear in tomorrow's discussion, and 2 daughters each were married to Angira, Krishava, and Bhuta. The first 10 daughters who were married to Yamraj, the 10 wives of Yamraj, and their descendants were described here. So the list includes so Bhanu had Deva, Rishabh, and Indrasen. Lamba had Vidyota, who actually gave rise to clouds, is described. Kakud had Sankata, whose son was Kikata. And Kikata is described to be the father of Durga, the demigods. Yami gave birth to Swarga and Nandi. I tried to cross-reference some of these names to see if they were actually some of the things that we had heard before, but I didn't find any reference that they actually say the same personalities as we've heard in the little pastimes of Lord Shiva. There's not much description on them. Vishwa gave birth to Vishwadevas. They didn't have any progeny. Sadhyas gave birth to Arthasiddhi. Marutvati gave birth to Marutman and Jayant. And Jayant was also known as Upendra, is what's described. An incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Uh, Muhurta gave rise to Mahurtikas. Sankalpa gave rise to Kama. And then the 10th wife of Yamraj was Vasu. And Vasu gave birth to 8 Vasus. And the names are listed here. Now, there was one reference that I recall from hearing a series on Mahabharata about the Vasus that I'd like to share. That it was described that the Vasus 8 in number, one of the Vasus had stolen a sacrificial cow from one of the rishis in the higher planetary system. And in doing so, he was later discovered and cursed by the rishi that him, along with all his other 7 brothers, would have to take birth in Bhuloka because of their mistake that they did. So these 8 Vasus appear as the 8 sons of Mother Ganga and Shantanu. So the 7 Vasus, they made an arrangement with Mother Ganga that, as soon as they would be born, they would be thrown into the river and drown, so that they would give up their material body very quickly and go back home to the heavenly planet from which they came from. But the 8th Vasu, who was actually responsible for stealing the sacrificial cow, he would remain behind to finish his course of earthly pastime. And that eighth Vasu, so this is the story that happens between King Shantanu and Mother Ganges. That Mother Ganges agrees to, be married to this King Shantanu on the condition that she would not keep any of the children that they bear. Any children that would be born, she would dispose of them. So, so the first child was born, second child was born, and they were all very beautiful. And Shantanu was really attached to them, but he knew that if we agreed to keep the child, Mother Ganges would leave. So he didn't say anything to that effect. So in that particular way, the first to 7 children were thrown away by Mother Ganges, and they were actually the Vasus who are described here, who were liberated from their material body, go back again to their heavenly planet. But the 8th Vasu, when he was born, Shantanu said, okay, enough is enough. You cannot just keep doing this. I'm very attached to him. I at least want to have one son, one heir. And in that particular process, Mother Ganges said, okay, here you go. I'm leaving. And Mother Ganges then leaves. And that particular son is known as Devavrat, who, because of his staunch pratigya or vow that he took, he became known as Bhishma. It's the Bhishma Pitama, who's the 8th Vasu that's described. So moving on to the other daughters. So again, now the descendants of the 8 Vasus who came of the 10th wife of Yamraj was described. There's a long list that's described here. Everybody can refer to this. As of this, it's described on the 7th one, Vastu and his wife Angirasi was born Vishwakarma, who's the chief architect of the demigods, and Vishwakarma gave birth to Chakshusha Manu, who's one of the Manus, or the rulers of the Manvantras. Now, so we said 10 wives to Yamraj, 27 to the moon god, which is going to be described tomorrow, and then 2 to Bhuta, the Bhuta, of the 2 wives that he had, one was Sarupa, she gave birth to 10 million Rudras, and the second wife gave birth to the Pretas and Vinayaks, who were the associate of the Rudras. Then Angira also was married to 2 daughters of Daksh Prajapati, Swadha and Sati, and Swadha gave birth to the Pitras, and Sati gave birth to the Atharvangirasa Veda. Rishabha was married to another 2 daughters of Daksh Prajapati, Archis and Dhishana, and through them he begot Dhumaketu, and so they were rishis, Dhumaketu, and then Dhishana bore Vedashira, Devala, Vayuna, and Manu. And then in the last, we come to Kashyap Rishi. And Kashyap Rishi, in total, he married 17 daughters of Daksh Prajapati, of which 4 are listed here. So, and through this union, a lot of different species were given birth into this material creation. So, Patangini who became the mother of many kinds of birds. Yamini gave birth to locusts. Vinata, or Suparna, gave birth to 2 wonderful bird-like creatures. Garuda, who became the king of the birds, a carrier of Lord Vishnu, and Aruna, or he's the driver of the sun, the driver of the chariot of the sun god. Um, Kadru gave birth to varieties of serpents. So again, in this reference, there's another reference that we had discussed previously once, but we can elaborate a little bit more about one of the wonderful servants, devotees of the Lord, Garuddev. So in particular, we see that the story of Garudev goes as follows: that Rishi Kashyap, as we see here listed, married 17 daughters of Daksh Prajapati, 2 of them being Kadru and Vinata. So once upon a time, Kadru and Vinata, so they asked for boons from Rishi Kashyap by serving him very wonderfully. And in granting the boons, Mother Kadru, she asked Kashyap Muni to have 1,000 children who are going to be very, very strong, and everybody is going to be very afraid of them because of their strength and because of what they can do. So Kashyap Rishi, he gave blessings to Mother Kadru, and in her womb she begot 1,000 eggs. Now those 1,000 eggs were born 1,000 serpents. So that's how the serpents came into being into this material creation. And because of the poison and their envious nature, everybody's afraid of them. Vinata, however, when her turn came to ask the boon of Shri Kashyap, she asked for sons who would counter the effects of the sons of Mother Kadru. So in her, Kashyap Muni gave birth to she begot 2 eggs. The first one was from which came this bird-like creature called Aruna, who was also the chariot driver of the sun god. And the second bird-like creature that came out was Garuddev. So what had happened was between Kadru and Vinata, there was a wager, a bet that when once they were out in the forest and they saw this beautiful white horse called Uchishrava, and they had a bet about from where they was viewing the particular horse, they weren't sure that the tail of the horse was it white or was it black, was it dark? So they argued, and Mother Kadru said, no, the tail is actually dark. And Mother Vanta said, no, 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 the tail is actually white. What started as a very jovial, friendly argument turned into a very heated one. And they wagered that whoever wins the argument, they said, we'll come back tomorrow and check again closely. And whoever wins the argument, the other person will have to be the slave for the first one. So in this particular way, when they were approaching this particular horse the next day, Mother Kadru realized that she actually had made a mistake, and this was the tail was actually white, and she would have to now be enslaved under Vinata. But she cheated, and she instructed her 1,000 serpents sons to go and cover the tail of the white horse Uchishrava to make it look like it was dark by enveloping the tail. And in this process, when both of them looked at it again, Kadru said, look, the tail is dark. And Vinita didn't realize that it was the snakes that's covering the tail. She accepted her defeat and accepted slavery to Mother Kadru. So when Garuddev was born, all the sons of the 1,000 serpents of Mother Kadru used to, order him around because he was the son of Vinata, who was technically the slave of Mother Kadru. And this particular way, Garuddev did not like that, and he wanted to be liberated from this bet or this deal. So he asked what can be done so that they would let them go. And the serpents and Mother Kadru said the only way we'd let you go is if you can get a pot of nectar from the demigods, and then we'd be immortal, and then we would for this task we would finish this thing, and you would not have to be slaves anymore. So describe how Garudev wonderfully goes and fights the battle with the demigods and brings a pot of nectar. And once he brings a pot of nectar, He brings it back to Mother Kadru, and the snakes, they immediately want to go ahead and drink the pot of nectar. But he says, let's first give my mother back to me, Vinata, and they hand over the mother. And he says, usually before you drink or do such a pious activity, you should take a bath in the lake. So as when the serpents go to take a bath in the lake, because of a previous arrangement between Garuda and Indradev comes down quickly and takes the pot of nectar away. So the sons of Kadru end up not even getting the nectar, but are just left with poison. So in this particular way, we see how Garudev was born, and because of this heroic task of going and getting the nectar from the heavenly planets, and because even when he got the nectar, it was not that he opened the jar and took a sip of nectar himself and became immortal, but he was very honest and loyal, and he did not partake of any of the nectar. Seeing this wonderful act, Lord Vishnu awarded him the position of his carrier. So in this particular way, and then there's wonderful descriptions of Garudev and all his wonderful activities that we encounter in Srimad Bhagavatam. So this, in brief, dear devotees, was the discussion, mostly facts that are presented about the different daughters of Prajapati Daksh and different kinds of varieties of offsprings, the species that were given birth to in this material world to fulfill the desires of the different souls to enjoy this material creation. With this, I'll end our discussion today. Thank you very much. Candra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chaitanya Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.